Yeah, I saw Nintendo's E3 Direct. I didn't watch it live because it aired a bit too early for my liking, and plus I never like watching the Directs live anyway because there's a lot of shit that's crammed into a lot of them that I couldn't give a fuck less about that I'd rather skip over. But that aside, what did I think about it? I wasn't impressed. Wasn't impressed at all. It seems like Nintendo's keeping true to the tradition that I pointed out some years ago, where one year Nintendo has a shit E3, the next year they have a decent to good E3, and then the next year they're back to shit. I believe I did enjoy their 2019 E3 Direct, and of course there was no E3 last year, but yeah, this E3 Direct I would say was pretty shit. I mean, there was some stuff that I cared about, like Breath of the Wild 2, even though we've barely seen enough of the game for me to build hype for it, and also Metroid Dread, that's pretty pog, but everything else, I really don't care. I mean, there's also the Skyward Sword remake, but that's kind of old news at this point, and I've already been certain that I'm gonna buy it at some point, but aside from the games I've mentioned, nothing. Nothing fucking entices me. I really was not impressed with this E3 at all, and I could rip into Nintendo like I've did plenty of times in the past, but at this point, I am so beyond caring. Nintendo just bores me these days. Gone are the days of Nintendo making me passionately angry to the point where, without any hesitation whatsoever, I would turn on the microphone and put them on blast for like 5 to 10 minutes, because these days, I just don't fucking care. For one, I have a PS5 now. I've been so happy playing on that thing, and I did not have a PS4, so I have a whole generation of games that I completely missed out on to catch up on because I decided to stick with the Wii U and the Nintendo Switch. And two, there's just nothing on the Switch that entices me currently. Again, there are some games coming onto it in the near future that will entice me to turn on the Switch and play on it, like Skyward Sword and Metroid Dread, but aside from that, nothing. Absolutely nothing. Oh, a bunch of Wii U ports on the Nintendo Switch that I've already played years and years ago. Wow, so enticing, so cool. Really looking forward to that. And of course, I perfectly understand why Nintendo was doing that, despite me thinking it was a good system. The Wii U was a giant flop, let's not sugarcoat it. But it had some really great games on it, so it makes sense that Nintendo would take the games that were on a failed system and port it onto the much more popular one so it can reach a wider audience. It makes a lot of sense, and it's perfectly understandable, but it seems like Nintendo relies a bit too much on that. They're like, well, these games are practically new to people because most people slept on the Wii U, so let's just port them over onto the Switch and not have to worry about making an original game. I mean, look at Splatoon 3. I know that's not a port, it's an up-and-coming game made for the Switch, but it looks like the same fucking game. It looks the same as Splatoon 2 and Splatoon 1, and you could give a bit of leeway for Splatoon 2 for being so similar to its predecessor because its predecessor was on a failed system, but when you're up to the third game and there's not really that much different, there's a big problem there. And here's the thing, I'm such a sucker, I'll probably buy it anyway. I like Splatoons online, it's a lot of fun. They already took away Splatfest for the second game. And despite the online being unstable as all hell, like I'm playing a game online in fucking 2001, it's still fun, okay? So I'm probably gonna buy it anyway, but that does not excuse Nintendo's absolute laziness when it comes to making games these days. They have this very pompous attitude to them, like, we're Nintendo, we know people buy our shit regardless of it being just re-releases from our previous system or sequels that are so damn similar to their predecessors that there's barely anything different, but again, we're Nintendo, so people eat our shit up regardless. I'm so tired of it. And I really don't know why I still try with this company, but I just do. I've been playing Nintendo my whole life. I started playing on the GameCube at 5 years old, and I still play on the GameCube to this day. It is a phenomenal system, but when it comes to Nintendo in the year 2021, with their current releases, they just don't entice me at all. I was bored with Nintendo months and months ago, but it especially became prevalent when I got my PS5. That completely stole me away from my Switch. I mean, my GameCube already stole me away from the Switch when I started collecting games for it, but the PS5, holy shit. It feels so nice to finally play on a system that actually feels modern. It doesn't seem so antiquated like the Nintendo Switch when you go on its UI and it's so fucking bare bones, and it doesn't have basic online features, but the PS5 does. And it's so nice. I've been so used to Nintendo and how they handle shit and how ass backwards it's been that it's such a dream to finally play on a system that is actually competent when it comes to such simple things that Nintendo just simply cannot grasp. This does not mean by any measure, of course, that Sony is perfect. I'm fully aware that they are prone to being dumbasses, and trust me, I have my share of gripes with the PS5, but the gripes I have with the PS5 and Sony in general does not come anywhere near to the gripes I have with the Switch and the current state of Nintendo. It's to the point where if a Switch Pro is actually going to happen, I don't think I would care very much because the Switch at this point is just for Nintendo games only for me. And when I say Nintendo games, I don't mean repackaged Wii U games, I mean actual new games, which seems to be kind of a rarity for Nintendo these days. Because what do we have? Remakes of older games, ports, sequels. The only thing that's actually kind of new is Metroid Dread, and already Metroid is an established franchise from very, very long ago, but it's an abandoned franchise that Nintendo is finally giving some attention to, so I constitute that as new. So long as the Switch Pro releases, if it even happens, and the OG Switch still gets new Nintendo games, I'll be perfectly happy, and I won't give a single solitary shit about the Switch Pro. And honestly, I think the Switch Pro might be another new 3DS situation. What I mean by that is, it's a marginal upgrade with some cool, nifty new features that don't really justify buying a whole new system. And I know there are rumors saying it's going to be a substantial upgrade compared to the original Switch, but I've learned to always take rumors like that with a grain of salt. So we'll see what happens there, but at this current point in time, I do not care at all, along with the current state of Nintendo, and I'll just continue happily playing on my PS5, and hell, I'll continue happily playing on my GameCube, because that was back when Nintendo actually gave a shit about quality. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.